So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call our meeting to order. Today is May 24th, 2022. This is a business meeting of the North Kingstown School Committee, and I'd ask for a motion to opening the open session. And I'd ask for a motion to recess to executive session for a discussion of any discussion of job performance, character, or physical mental health of a person or persons, provided that such persons affected have been notified in advance in writing and advised that they may require that the discussion be held in an open meeting, and they have, and the meeting minutes shall reflect that, pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A1. Sessions pertaining to potential legal advice and litigation pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A2. Discussions of investigative proceedings regarding allegations of misconduct, either civil or criminal, pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A4. Sessions pertaining to collective bargaining pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A2 for the NKSD and NEANK unions. And a discussion regarding the matter of security, including but not limited to deployment of security personnel or devices pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A3. If I could have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. We are in executive session. We will return at approximately 7 p.m. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call our meeting to order. Today is May 24th, 2022, and this is a business meeting of the North Kingstown School Committee. I'd ask if we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you could please call the roll.
Mr. Blasbach.
Here.
Mrs. Hildebrand.
Here.
Mrs. Hoskins. Here. Mrs. Lima. Here. Mr. Mather. Here. Mrs. Schott. Brooke Thompson. Gabriel Anthony.
Thank you. And if you could call the calendar, please.
Tuesday, June 14th will be our next school committee business meeting, and then maybe our last one, June 28th.
Thank you. Okay, so next we have citizens' comments. We do have a sign-up sheet if you haven't... Oh, presentation. Sorry, I'm off track already. We have a presentation. Mrs. King.
So I presented to you in your packet. I won't go through all of it. It's a rather lengthy letter, but about 7 years ago, unbelievably, I had produced a letter with Mr. James Grundy on all of the accomplishments of the building subcommittee. And I do see a member of our building subcommittee here. In addition to Mr. Grundy, I see Jack Pine in the back. Thank you, Jack, for attending. And I see Bob Correnti, who is our new director of facilities. So I encourage anybody that has some time to take a look at all of the accomplishments of the building subcommittee for the district. That committee has been in existence for 15 years. It is a committee that's required to be separate from the town's asset management committee. That's required by RIDE. And there are so many accomplishments accomplished by that committee. And the reason why I really want to bring it up is because I had also told you several meetings ago that Mr. Grundy has resigned from the chair of the building committee after 15 years, effective June 30th. And I think it's important that you see all of the accomplishments that that committee has been able to savings for the district, upgrades for the district, just so many things that that committee has done under his leadership. And I did ask him if he could be here tonight so that we could recognize him for that accomplishment. And I will now turn that over to you, Mr. Blasbach.
Thank you. Mr. Grundy, I want to thank you for your selfless dedication to our school department. Just a reminder for folks in the audience, these people are experts in the building trades, Mr. Grundy included, who volunteer their time. They do not get paid to review all of our bids, our contracts, our plans for school construction, and due to their expertise in various areas, I mean, it's amazing the amount of input and help that they have in making sure that everything that we do fixing our schools gets done the right way. And I want to thank you very much. And as a token of our appreciation, I have a small gift for you that I'd like to give you, sir. Thank you very much. So next, we have citizens' comments. Again, if you could please limit your comments to 3 minutes. If the light starts to blink red and shuts off, that means your time has expired. And just as a reminder, while the school committee will listen to absolutely anything that you have to say for your 3 minutes, citizens' comments are comments, so we don't have answers to questions or respond to them, but we will listen. First person on the list is Ramona Bessinger. And again, if you could please state your name and address, including the town, for the record.
My name is Ramona Bessinger. I live in Jamestown, 437 Davitt Avenue in Jamestown. Oftentimes, I think we get some things confused regarding the material, the curriculum material that is currently in our schools. And I would like to clarify, and discuss or sort of bring it up, because I can't get anywhere with any of the emails or queries or discussions. Okay, so one of the things that concerns me is this notion that we are book banners. We are not book banners, none of us. None of the parents who have expressed concerns, none of us are expressing concern about banning one book. What we would like, and I think I speak for a number of parents, is to get rid of the entire curriculum platforms that are highly political in nature, and now we're learning sexual in nature, extremely sexual, not literature, not graphic novels, but novels that depict pornography and sexuality, inappropriate sexuality, especially for the younger grades K through 6, where it seems pedophilia, incest, rape, and subjugation of young women is a common theme in a lot of the literature. And so what I wanted to express tonight was to sort of talk a little bit about the platforms, the curriculum platforms, because these books are not coming in one at a time. They're not coming in, there's not just one book. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books that all seem to roll into our schools sometime around 2019, that September after COVID. And oddly enough, these curriculum platforms are very similar, in fact, identical. They share the same consultants, they share the same content, and none of you have vetted that content. None of you. There is no way that you have read some of these books. If you have, then shame on all of you. So please don't say that these are vetted or approved by some library association or the Bill Gates Association or that association. We're not buying that anymore. These books are offensive, and I just want to read a few. We have the graphic novel The Handmaid's Tale, which deals, not the novel, but the cartoon novel. My Body is Growing, which deals with incest and pedophilia. Sam is My Sister, which promotes transgenderism. 10,000 Dresses, again, a cartoon book about transgenderism, very inappropriate for young children, promoting it, and that's not fair. What Are Your Words? Jacob's Room to Choose, encouraging children to share bathrooms. Introducing Teddy, a book that tells children they are born asex but have the right to change their sex if they so desire. This is a K through 4th grade reader. Most disgusting is a book called It Feels Good to Be Yourself. This is a book that promotes sexuality and gender identity. Sparkle Boys, My Shadow is Pink, Jack Not Jackie, and again another book about encouraging children to, a cartoon book encouraging children to explore their masturbation, explore anal sex, lubing
I'd have to ask
up,
you to please wrap up.
Excuse me, lubing up before anal sex. This is in a book for a young adolescent.
Again, I'd have to ask you to please wrap up.
Grades 6 through 12. Okay? None of you have vetted these books. And if you have...
Thank you, your time's expired.
If you have...
Thank you, your
then
time's
I hope
expired.
at some point in time...
Thank you, your time
face
has expired.
Litigation.
Thank you. Next person is Susanna Tingley.
Susanna Tingley, 750 Hatchery Road. The cartoon interpretation of The Handmaid's Tale, available at the high school, contains vile images of rape and has nothing to do with the meaning of the novel. Unlike the novel, this cartoon version promotes bondage. Unlike the novel, this book promotes sexual fetishes. Unlike the novel, this cartoon promotes the hatred of women. Unlike the novel, this book marginalizes women and makes the sexual imagery attractive and behaviors seductive. Unlike the actual novel, this book subjugates women. Have any of you read the novel and compared how this vile cartoon misrepresents the theme of the novel? I doubt you have, because you wouldn't allow this art adaptation in our school. And I just want to share with you, this is one page from the book. There's a naked woman with a collar and a leash eating from a bowl in front of a man. There's a woman with a gun in her mouth. There's a woman with her hands behind her back being raped. There's another woman being raped. There's another woman being held down, being raped. This is in our high school. It is your responsibility to limit children's access to graphic material while they're in school. If a child accesses sexual content while using a school Chromebook, the school's alerted. So why is it okay to check porn out of the library? Minors need parental consent to enter a movie theater to see an R-rated movie. So why are these books available to our children without consent? Your job is to make sure my children know how to read and write and are safe. Take these books out of the school. This gratuitous knockoff exploits women, increases anxiety, and hinders the development of healthy relationships. My intention is not to ban books. I want the entire curriculum platform audited. There were hundreds of books that promote a similar theme that haven't been uncovered, and they need to go. Audit the curriculum platform. Protect our kids. Audit the books our kids can access. If you do nothing, you are complicit in the abuse of our children. To all the parents with kids at the high school or going to start at the high school this year, you should be alarmed. How would you feel if these pictures were pictures of your daughter drinking out of a dog bowl with a leash or lying with her hands tied behind her back while getting raped? Is this what we want our sons to be taught? Is this how we want them to treat women? What the hell is going on in this school? What's next? Are we going to bring leashes and dog bowls into the school so we can act out the books in the classroom? Where is the morality on this school committee? Get your heads out of your asses and audit this curriculum. Get the books out of the school and do your job. I'm tired of asking.
Thank you. I believe one person signed up on the second sheet. Thank you, Mr. Mather. Next is Peter Cornelian.
Yeah, Peter Cornelian, 139 North Road, Saunderstown. I actually was going to say something. Well, no, I'm going to go on with what I was going to say. I read a book this past week on the gene and how the gene works. And I found some incredibly interesting things about gender identity in the book with regard to, for example, people being born with a woman's body but male genes. So it's not as clear-cut as it's made to sound here. But that's not what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say is at the school committee meeting 2 weeks ago, several individuals raised concerns with regard to the recognition of Asian Pacific Islanders and to flying a gay pride flag at the school. One of the arguments presented specifically related to the recognition of Asian Pacific Islanders is that one of the arguments that was presented related to that is that there is no need for this and that there is no bias against them in our community. The notion of bias, or rather a lack thereof in our community toward non-white races or non-straight gender identification has come up a number of times in the past year. To think that we do not have biases is to deny what it means to be human. The human brain is one of the most remarkable biological entities in nature. It's extraordinarily powerful. Computer programs run on the biggest supercomputers still can't compete with some of the fundamental reasoning capabilities of humans. These computers cannot make the inferences from a small amount of data excuse me, that a 5-year-old can make. The important point here is the notion of inferences from a small amount of data, which is one of the distinguishing features of the human brain. But this is also what makes us biased. We often base our view of the world on only a very small amount of information. We are biasing our view of the world based on this small amount of information. While this allows us to function at a high level in our environment, there are occasions where the bias simply leads us to inappropriate or incorrect conclusions. What I've learned from the DEI discussions, both here and elsewhere, is how important it is to confront these biases, the biases that each of us has and the harm they cause. Interestingly, there is a major thrust of current work in artificial intelligence. The current focus in AI research is on machine learning algorithms, and in particular on deep learning algorithms. These algorithms work by sifting through incredible volumes of data. What is being discovered is that the data on which the algorithms are being trained is biased. It is derived from books, newspapers, text messages, etc., and it contains all of the biases in these sources of information, the same biases that we have. That's why they're there. To a certain extent, the problems of bias faced in our work on artificial intelligence today highlight.
I have to ask you to please wrap up.
Okay. Well, then I'll jump to the end to say, to me, it's a fundamental focus of DEI, and I'd like to once again thank the school committee for their efforts in this regard, and I applaud the recognition of Asian and Pacific Islanders and of gender identities other than mine. Thank you.
Thank you. So next would be Superintendent's report. Mr. Waterman.
Yes, thank you. Last night in this room, we had about a dozen residents attend our final session on our educational facilities master plan. The planning that was done at this stage is required by RIDE to be completed every 5 years, and the group got together, looked at some recommendations. It was a year-long process that started with meetings with administrators, teachers, a tour of the facilities, and they came. Our master planner came up with recommendations. She's going to be at our next meeting on June 14th to review those recommendations, and we anticipate a full report by the end of the year. I'm sorry, by the end of June, by the end of the next month. The decisions that came out of the group are not final. Before any work or construction or anything is proposed, there would be additional community sessions. I know there were some people who were unable to attend these sessions. So before any school is built, there would be many, many more conversations. So if you weren't able to attend, I encourage you to tune in on June 14th, as well as go on our webpage under the superintendent's department heading. You can find a webpage that contains all of the videos that she put together from her pre-planning to after her first two sessions, and I know she's going to amend the final video to include last night's session data. So again, June 14th, she'll be presenting at the school committee meeting. As I've had the fortune to do it to every meeting since I've come here, I have a list of recognitions that I'd like to jump into now, starting with the high school. Our high school team, chemistry team, competed in the University of Rhode Island chemistry contest. Our first year chemistry team finished second overall, and our second year chemistry team finished third overall. So congratulations to our chemistry students. Next, I have some recognitions from the middle school. Our Rhode Island Scholar Leaders, we have 2 from Wickford and 2 from Davisville. Our 2 Wickford representatives are Juliana Williams and Christopher Ciarnello. And from Davisville Middle School is Casimir Morissetti and Evan Seamus. Also coming from Davisville Middle School, Davisville was recognized for creating 207 cards for retired Sergeant Victor W. Butler, who was one of the Tuskegee. I was practicing this. Thank you. I was practicing this before, to Tuskegee Airmen who just celebrated his 100th birthday. So Davisville created 207 cards for him. And finally, I'm recognizing Molly Egan, who's a Jamestown resident who attends North Kingstown High School. She was named a winner of the National Merit Scholarship. Yes, I agree. Thank you. Less than 1% of U.S. high school seniors make the cut and become a finalist, and she was selected. So, good job.
Thank you.
Also, I have Marcella. Do you want
Yep.
to recognize her, or do you want to move it up first?
You start, and then we'll move it up.
On tonight's agenda, I am proud to recommend the appointment of two individuals, one of which is here in the building with us now. Mrs. Marcella Clark is up for approval to be appointed as the new principal at Hamilton Elementary School. Marcella comes to us from Foster Gloucester, Captain Isaac Payne to be specific. She's been there since 2019, and before that, she had various administrative positions in Westerly. The process, we interviewed a good number of candidates who came forward to an interview team that consisted of teachers, administrators, parents, and we then narrowed that down to 3 semifinalists, and Marcella stood alone at the end. In talking with her current district, they are very sad to see her go, and their loss is our gain. So I'd like to, upon your approval, welcome Marcella to North Kingstown.
Okay, so with unanimous consent, if I have consent of all the members, I will ask that we move the approval of, we might as well do two, well, no, we'll do one at a time. E3, which is the approval of the principal's contract at this time. So if I could get a motion to approve item E3. I have a motion and a second. Motion from Ms. Lima, second from Mr. Mather. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Congratulations and welcome on board. Thank you. And so, Mrs. King, do you want to speak briefly on the Director of Finance? We can do that one at this time as well? Or you two? Okay, you got them too.
Also up for approval tonight is Gail Wilcox to be the next Director of Finance. Gail comes to us from Charahoe, where she is the Assistant Director of Finance, and prior to that, she was the Director of Administration in East Greenwich. Again, in speaking with the folks at Charahoe, they are sad to see her go, but again, their loss is our gain, so I look forward to her joining the team as well.
So I'd ask for a motion to approve item, first, unanimous consent to bring it forward at this time, and a motion to approve item E2.
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. Hildebrand, second from Ms. Lima. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Also passes unanimously. Okay. Congratulations to our new staff members. So we did that. So we're on to routine items. I'd like to get a motion to seal the executive session minutes of this evening, May 24th, 2022. A motion from Ms. Lima, second Mr. Mather. Any discussion? This is tonight, so I know where you're going, but we're not there yet. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously, and I can disclose that no votes were taken in this evening's executive session. For consent agenda, items that if anyone would like to exempt, I'll start with where you were going, which is C1 and C2, because I know Ms. Hoskins was absent from those meetings. I'm also going to exempt D4. We've already approved E2 and 3. Anyone else have something they'd like to exempt? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve the non-exempted or already approved consent agenda items. A motion from Ms. Hoskins. Do I have a second? Second from Mr. Mather. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. So we can probably take them together. So if I could get a motion to approve C1 and C2. I have a motion from Ms. Lima.
Second.
Second from Ms. Hoskins. I'm sorry, Ms. Hildebrand. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And an abstention, right? And Ms. Hoskins is abstaining. Sorry, I was literally looking at her name. All those in favor? Aye. We did that. Done. That passes with 4 yeses and 1 abstention. Next, item D4. Mrs. King?
Yes, so unfortunately, the timing for us on this one is not the best, but our current electricity purchasing contract, so we have a third-party contract for the commodity purchasing for the electricity. So we still pay distribution charges and taxes and whatnot to National Grid. But every 3 years, we go out to bid through a consultant who puts our bid on a public auction, our book of business on a public auction. And unfortunately, our electricity purchasing contract is expiring in December. Normally, in the past years, I think this is the 4th time I would present this to the school committee. This is the time frame where, even though we still have 6 months or so, we would be locking in pricing now for that time frame because it's usually a favorable time of year to lock in pricing. You know, as we get, you know, later into the bad weather and there's more forecasts about bad weather, it tends to not work in our favor. And we had a very, very favorable pricing contract that is expiring. Unfortunately, the numbers that I presented to you tonight are really recommended by the consultant for us to consider one of the options that went in front of you: 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year contract. The consultant leans toward a 2 or 3 or 4 year contract, and I'll talk a little bit more about the 4 year in a second. As you can see, our expiring pricing is 0769 cents per kilowatt hour. We have 5 bidders, which is good. I mean, this company that we deal with, NKSD, they've been our consultant for many years, putting our business out to bid, and we've done very well by using them. So they had 5 companies bid on our book of business, and the low bidder right now at this time in a fully fixed contract is EDF Energy. So if you'll notice in the package that I gave to you, 2 of the bidders bid an adjusted contract. And what that means is that not only can the price change based on our usage and our capacity, but that vendor has the ability to adjust based on their needs and their usage and capacity as well. So we would not be looking for an adjusted contract. It does not give us budget security in order to do that. So we are recommending tonight that the committee consider in my letter, I said that I considered a 3-year contract. I found out from Mr. Attorney Santos here that he did some research for us. The committee is allowed to enter into a 4-year contract. Attorney Santos researched that the 3-year contracts are more when you're talking employees. We are not allowed to go longer than 3 years for employee contracts and collective bargaining agreements. But when it comes to a pricing agreement like this, we are allowed to go for 4 years. I would recommend that if the committee is comfortable going 4 years, we would have pricing of $10,603 per kilowatt hour. So it's still significantly more than what we're paying, but it is the best rate of all of the pricing. Our consultant also recommends that you are, obviously up in those higher years. They really don't see in the out years, with inflation, the one thing that's really impacting us now is not just inflation. It's just that the storage of gas and for the commodities and the pipeline capacity is just, it's not there. We're about 25% below where we need to be. And with a very warm summer and a very cold winter forecast, those reserves are going to get lower and lower. It's going to be harder and harder for the capacity and the storage to increase. So I actually, since Attorney Santos was able to get us that information, I would request that you consider allowing us to enter into a 4-year contract with EDF Energy. The way this process works is that NKSD, our consultant, needs to refresh the pricing. They'll do that for us tomorrow morning. I have seen in the past that the low bidder at this point has changed to a different low bidder. So what I'm asking you is for your approval to enter into the best pricing contract up to the 4 years that we get back from NKSD tomorrow afternoon. And what I'll do is I will update my letter for the record in correspondence so that you know exactly where we landed in pricing and what company we end up going with.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'm going to make a motion just so that we have a nice clear one. So I'd make the motion that the school committee award the electricity purchasing contract to EDF based upon Mrs. King's recommendation for a 4-year term, and authorize the school department to enter into that contract based on the best available rates available in the final pricing, which you'll have tomorrow, correct?
Correct.
So that's my motion. Do I have a second? I have a second from Ms. Lima. Any discussion?
Can I just clarify that? Oh, I don't have a mic. I can yell. We're entering into the contract with EDF, or you're saying that if NKSD runs it tomorrow and EDF is no longer the lower lowest bidder, we're going to go with the lowest
Correct,
bidder.
exactly, and that's happened to us before.
So,
Which is-
so I
which
think
is
your
really-
motion
Rephrase
needs
that.
to be rewritten.
Yep.
That's right. The motion is really for us to enter into the lowest 4-year priced commodity provider after the refresh.
Okay.
I have one question, and that's for the fixed, right? Not for the...
Correct, it'll
Okay.
be fixed. We don't want to
Okay.
do adjusted, yep.
Okay,
So even if the lower is...
Right,
Okay.
exactly. Only fixed fee.
So let's withdraw that motion with unanimous consent. We'll start over. So we're going to authorize the school department to enter into a contract for a 4-year term with the lowest available pricing that is available in the final pricing tomorrow. Correct? That's essentially what you need. Okay. Do I have a second?
Hold on, Mary, all those companies are comfortable with a 4-year commitment?
Yes, there's 2 of them that are adjusted that we would not go to, but they all bid on 4-year.
So, yeah, okay. So I need a second.
Second.
Second from Ms. Hildebrand. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you for your work on that.
Thank you.
Okay, so consent agenda is done. So next, we have the school committee approval of the district all hazard site reports. Mrs. King, could you just speak briefly as to those? And I'm just going to mention, even before we start, that this is a school security item. When it comes to school security, the Rhode Island Open Meeting Act allows us to not release school security plans because of the sensitive nature of them and the fact that they could be used by someone in a nefarious way. And the example I always give is if you don't want to say in a public meeting that, and I make this up, that the back door to the left is broken and the lock doesn't work. You don't say that because someone's going to go open the back door to the left because the lock doesn't work. Our security plans are extraordinarily detailed. We work very closely with the police and the fire department, as well as all state agencies, including Rhode Island State Police, have come in and spoken with us before. And I say that because if you've seen the news, there's another horrible situation that seems to never end. Just know that this district does spend a great deal of time working on these items, working closely with all of the agencies that are involved, and this approval is just part of that process. So, Mrs. King, if you could just briefly explain what we're approving
Right.
here.
So these reports are a little bit different. So every year in about October-ish, you, in confidential mode again, approve the school crisis plans. Those are the plans they look at every single year. There's procedures. We have them in a template. And those are required to be approved every year by the school committee, and then we report to RIDE that those have been approved. So that's a yearly one. This one is a much more detailed, and it's called an all-site safety hazard report, or hazard safety report. And these are required by state law. And after you approve these tonight, there is a Rhode Island Safety Committee that we will submit those to. And I don't know if I said it, they're due every 3 years. So the last time we did this was in 2019. The very first time we did this was 2016. So this is really actually the third one of these reports that we're submitting.
Thank you very much. So if I could get a motion to approve item 5. I have a motion from Mr. Mather, second from Ms. Lima. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next we have, and they kind of go together, but we have worked with the North Kingstown Educational Support Personnel Union to negotiate a new contract with them. I want to thank everyone that was involved, both on the administration and the union side. From what we see in this contract, it provides both sides with a fair contract, and that is always the goal. So we'll start by approving the fiscal impact statement. If I could get a motion to approve item 6. Motion, Mr. Mather. Second from Ms. Lima. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And then I need a motion to approve item 7, which is the contract itself.
So moved.
A motion from Ms. Hildebrand. Second from Ms. Lima. Any other discussion? And again, just to thank you, everyone who worked really hard on that.
Yeah, I would like to thank the NKSD leadership as well. I know Mr. Waterman would too. I'm not speaking for him, putting words in his mouth, but it was a really great group. That would be Amanda Scott from NEA, Sue Tavares, who is our local president, Tina Bilodeau also, and a couple other various members. We had Dina Anderson from payroll, we had Heather Wood from facilities, and we had Debbie Hancock from transportation. On our committee was Mr. Waterman, myself, Mr. Lally, and our attorney. It was, they're a really good group. It was, I'm not going to say that everybody got everything they wanted. I think there's a saying that say if both sides come out in the middle, some are happy, some are not about some things. That's how it worked out. But it was very respectful and they're a very reasonable group. So I thank them very much.
Thank you.
Boy, for not wanting to speak for me, I think you read off my note card, so everything she just said, I'd also echo.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, if I could get a motion to approve item 8, which is the approval of the Health and Wellness Committee charges.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Hildebrand, second from Mr. Mather. Just as a discussion, I just want to mention something. Occasionally this comes up at citizens' comments. The Health and Wellness Subcommittee is required by state law, and it is a little bit of a misnomer in that it is not responsible for all matters of health and wellness. It actually has a very specific and limited scope. It deals with nutrition, school lunches, as well as the components of the health curriculum as well. So this is just restating that charge. It is not a all-encompassing committee that looks at everything to do with health and wellness, despite its name. So did we get a motion a second? If we got a motion a second, any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, we have the appointment of a member to the NSDEC Screening Committee. So at our last meeting, we spent a bit of time with our NSDEC consultant, and we spent a bit of time figuring out the best composition of a subcommittee that is going to look at the finalists for our superintendent search. And we have a broad swath of members of the community. People weren't here, so folks here weren't here because there was almost nobody here. But it ranges from having a member of the school committee, which we're about to appoint now, as well as representatives from the teachers, representatives from the PTOs, representatives from the town business community, representative from the town council, representatives from our senior citizens from the senior center. Am I missing any? Students, special education. And specifically special ed through our CLAC subcommittee. So we're really trying to get a really diverse group of people, get a lot of community input in interviewing those finalists that come out of the superintendent search, which is being discussed by NSDAC. So
may I jump in?
You may.
I'd also like to announce I sent an email out late this afternoon, but we've put together a web page where all of the information regarding the search for our next superintendent can be found, including a timeline, focus groups. There's right now a community survey that's open. There's right now we have 2 scheduled parent focus groups, a community one, staff. There's a student one that's being set up. That's not on the webpage because that's being handled directly by the high school. But that information is all up online right now. I sent an email out with the direct link, but in case you didn't receive it or you're watching at home and didn't receive the email, if you go to our webpage, nksd.net, under the superintendent's department heading, you'll also see the search for the new superintendent. So under the superintendent webpage, you'll be able to see the educational facility master plan and all the information on the superintendent search.
Thank you very much. And again, we welcome as much public participation as we can get here so that we can hear from you and all the members of the community on what you think we should be looking for in our next superintendent. So at this point, I'd have to ask for, we need to have somebody. So I need to know, I need a motion, and then we need to vote on who our school committee representative is going to be. Remembering that it is a pretty intense time commitment, there's going to be a lot of meetings, but we do need someone. Well, that's the thing. I mean, there's going to be a lot of meetings over the summer, and I don't think we know exactly when yet.
We have 2 dates.
Okay.
July 18th and July 25th. Brian Lalley's going to confirm it, but
What days of the week were those? Do we know? I'll look it up. Hold on. May, June, July. What was it? July
18th and 25th. But if you go to that webpage I created, the timeline's right on
Those are both
there.
Mondays. Okay. All right. So then I will make a motion to appoint Ms. Hoskins as the school committee appointed member to the NSDEC Screening Committee. Do I have a second? Second for Mr. Mather. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. For unfinished business, status of investigative reports, Attorney Santos?
There are no updates at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. When there are or more information comes forward, we will update the community accordingly. 2021-22 school budget?
Nothing.
And 2022-23 school budget? Nothing as well, right? No, just kidding.
So I did present to you a spreadsheet. We had to reconcile bottom line $491,000, so almost $500,000. That was based upon a decreased town allocation for our requested property tax allocation. So I have several areas that I recommend where we make the cuts. Unfortunately, the first area really pretty much is, the one good thing is we had a significant decrease in what we had anticipated for healthcare cost increase. Our healthcare percentage, our healthcare costs by premiums only went up 0.5%. So that is amazing how low that is. There can be a lot of speculation that it's still COVID related, blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is it went up very little. So that's beneficial to us. I do have in here the impact of the fiscal impact statement from ESP. So that's an increase to the budget. So I needed to really cover more than just $500,000. We had to move some other monies around. And then the three positions that were added in February, before we sent the budget to the town council, we have to recommend that those positions not be added. If those positions are added, then someone else would have to be eliminated. The good news that I can give you for that is that one of those positions, which was the addition of a social worker at the elementary level, that's able to be covered under our ESSER funds. Unfortunately, that's only for FY23 and FY24, but it's better than, a sharp stick to the eye. So we have that for 2 years anyway, and in future budgeting, that's something else you can look at. We did reduce some professional development monies, and I did have to make some changes in our workers' comp and our insurance coverage. One other item that I do want to address that needs to get out there is that there is savings in the budget. I had budgeted $15,000 for the high school accreditation process that's completed with a organization called NEASC. And the reason why that's been cut is not because we have to pay for something else or pay for an investigation or we don't know what we're doing. The reason why that's cut is because NEASC reached out to many members who were going to be due for that accreditation in the next couple of years. It's a very lengthy process. NEASC actually reached out to schools and asked if people wanted to defer their accreditation process because NEASC is so overwhelmed. They have so many schools that they need to accredit. I think they've fallen behind because of COVID like everyone else has. After thorough discussion between Dr. Morse and Mr. Waterman, it's in the district's best interest because we do not have a superintendent, we do not have an assistant superintendent, you will have a new finance person because there is some finance input as well. It's in the district's best interest to put that off since NEASC asked if there's anyone who wanted to put that off. Mr. Waterman probably has more information on that. That was fully discussed. So that's $15,000 we didn't need to include in the budget for that reason, solely that reason. There's no other reason. And then I did also include at the bottom here just a few other things for you to keep in mind on the budget. I do think it's going to be a little bit difficult budget year, especially early on. A state aid funding formula, I think our number is pretty solid. There have been no updates, even though we were waiting for one. We know employee attrition numbers were really high. CTE tuitions, we've talked about that before, being a little bit precarious with RIDE's determination that there's no similar CTE program in the state. I do know there are a couple of districts that are already challenging that ruling. The ESSER funds run out. The teacher's contract is still not negotiated, and there's always inflation and other things. So there are just a few things that the new finance person I know will be able to keep an eye on, but I wanted the school committee to understand that as well.
Thank you very much. So at this point, I'd ask for a motion to approve item C1, which are the recommended budget adjustments, and we can talk about them after we have a motion. Motion from Ms. Lima. Second from Ms. Hildebrand. Any discussion on them? Okay.
I'd just like to thank Ms. King for doing the adjustments. I know it's not easy to go back and forth, and I appreciate the fact that there weren't, aside from not being able to add the positions that we wanted, there weren't any major disruptions to our ability to provide what we've been providing. So thank you for that.
And what I'll do next is, now that you voted on that, is in the next couple of weeks, I'll make sure that the document that the last document that we presented to the town council will be updated, and that will be your final budget. I'll link you to it, and we'll put it on the agenda, so you'll be ready to go for next year.
And next year's another story. I mean, we got really lucky in healthcare, and that's why, remember, when we start working on this, I mean, when Mrs. King and her team start working on this, it's in November, December.
That's crazy.
And we, start looking at it as a school committee beginning of the year. So much, and we make this point back then, but I just want to make it again, a budget is a budget. A budget is not an audit, right? An audit is what happened. A budget is what you think is going to happen. It's a guess. It is what my wife jokingly calls a swag, which is a scientific wild, I won't name the A, guess, but that's what it is. It's a guess, but a scientific one. We got lucky in that our healthcare numbers were not nearly the increase we expected, which gave us a lot of flexibility. So we were able to adjust down without making any, thankfully, serious changes in curriculum cuts or anything like that. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So next we have CIP, existing bond, future bond.
I don't have anything, no.
Okay, so we have a series of policies. So again, this is part of our systematic look at our policies as we go forward, eliminating those that are redundant, covered in other places, are no longer needed, are governed by a statute instead of a policy. Just it's something that it's sort of pruning the shrubbery, so to speak, needs to be done. I'm going to start by asking for a motion to table item E1. We're just going to take another look at that one before we vote on it. Okay, so I have a motion from Ms. Lima, second Mr. Mather. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously, so that's tabled. Next, I'm going to do two more tables. We're going to do some further work on item E5 and E6. So if I could get a motion to table items E5 and E6. I have a motion from Mr. Mather, second from Ms. Hoskins. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So E5 and E6 are tabled. Are there any that we want? I mean, the easy thing to do would be to vote on the rest as a block. We can do that unless there's any particular, sort of like the consent agenda, unless there's any particular policy that anyone would like to, speak to separately. Then if not, I'll make the motion just to make it easier. So we'll make a motion that we approve, and I'll do it slow for Ms. Bison later on. Item E2, E3, E4, E7, E8, E9, E10, and E11 all together.
Second.
I have a second from Ms. Hildebrand. Any discussion? Thank you for the policy subcommittee's work on this. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. New business. We have two special reports on the policy subcommittee policy review. I don't know if there's much to say about that other than the report and, again, the results we see here, and disposal notifications, as well as the financial reports. Any questions on any of those? And then that is the end of the agenda. I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. I have a motion from Mr. Mather, second from Ms. Hoskins. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming this evening.